Hey my good friend, Sam Haymart with Test Driven TV. Spring is here, everything's blooming. Can you tell? This is the 2023 Ford Bronco Sport Heritage Limited Edition. It's retro, it's colorful, and oh by the way, you can really take this thing off-roading. It is beautiful out here. The birds are chirping, the flowers are blooming. It is spring in the Arizona desert, and how apropos that Ford gave me this to test out here this week. It matches everything just perfectly in the color palette. What this is basically is 1966. The Bronco Sport Heritage and the Heritage Limited Edition. There are two different trim grades available for this. A more basic, less expensive model, which is based on the Big Bend with a 3-cylinder engine. This one, based on the Badlands off-road. As tested, this one is $46,000 and some change. If you look at the Ford website right now, this is the most expensive way that you can get the Ford Bronco Sport. And it's also sold out. This is limited to only 1,966 copies. Why? Because 1966. And so what does that get you when you step up to the Bronco Sport Heritage family? Well, on the Heritage Limited that we have here, right on the side, look at those emblems. Very retro chrome script emblems with the Bronco on there. Looking at the front, a white grille with red lettering. That's very reminiscent of the 1960s Ford trucks and Ford Broncos. And retro though it be, it does frame out those very non-retro LED headlights pretty good, I think. Looking down at the wheels, in the 60s, white steel wheels were very common, especially on base models here. These are not base wheels. These are alloys painted white, and they have some very good Falcon Wild Peak 235/65 all-terrain tires that do have some pretty good bite out here in the desert, and we'll get to that in a minute. Coming down the side, the lower rockers, a pretty rugged piece. And as you can see up on the roof, two-tone treatment going on with Oxford white up there. Very nice set of roof racks, and this one does have a pretty sizable sunroof. At the back, I was surprised to find out that this is not a power opening hatch, something you usually expect in this class, in this price range especially. No complaints though. It does have a very cool opening window that you can just open that small bit instead of going all the way if you just have some small things to throw in the back. And at the back, of course, LED taillights and white Bronco lettering across the deck. And this does include a trailer tow package, which is why you also see down there the tow hitch receiver. So it might look like it really belongs in the country club, but it really is functional out here in the real world. If you thought the exterior was a love-hate relationship with the special edition, check out the interior. We start with the Bronco Sport interior in its highest trim grade, which is a good place, a good starting point. But when you get the Heritage Limited Edition, you also get a number of touches that tie the theme in with the outside. And we'll start right with these seats. These are a saddle colored leather with perforated inserts, and that perforation actually has a plaid pattern in it. And I gotta tell you, these seats look like they're right out of my uncle's Pinto from 1970s. This is a style that was very common back then, and they brought it back in a modern way. There is white stitching and orange stitching in these seats. And when you look around, you'll also see white trim on the dash and the door panels. And that also ties into that retro theme that we're seeing on the outside with the white accents. The Bronco Sport interior as a baseline, as I said, a very good place to start. The materials are of a pretty good quality for this price range. And with the Heritage Limited Edition, you get the Adventure Package, which brings a lot of creature comforts and technical options inside. These seats are heated. The steering wheel has a nice soft stitch covering. It's got paddle shifters on it. Looking ahead, a 2-dial instrument cluster with a nice digital center screen, which can show you all of the drive modes and the customized information sets. Over here at the center stack, the infotainment screen is here, hard controls for it below. A nice little cubby here to put things, and a phone can fit there, although I have put my phone down here in the lower cubby because there's a wireless charger down there, and it's a nice place to put that where it's not going to fall out and go anywhere when you're off-roading or things like that. Ports down there as well. All of the controls for the HVAC are located right here in the center, and this does have a climate control in it. The center console has the dial shift selector, not my favorite, and off to the side, cup holders. And you can put the big tall gas station cups here and they're not going to get in the way because they're down low. Behind that is where the drive modes are, and right here on the center console, one nice little piece that commemorates this special edition is a plaque that has sort of the Bronco grille design in it. Pretty cool. Now, storage in the center console, very good. I would say about 1.5 square tissue boxes worth of volume, and there's some extra charging ports down in there to boot. Also optioned here is a sunroof, and a pretty big one at that. It's not your standard size. It's not a panoramic roof, but it is just a little bit bigger. These seats, not the most comfortable in the world, and we've talked about that before when I've test driven other Fords with these same seats, including the Ford Maverick, the Ford Escape, and other Bronco Sports. This is a standard Ford seat that you're going to find in most vehicles that they make, and it just isn't that comfortable, and that's mainly because the adjustment range for the height just doesn't quite get there. It doesn't go up and down like this. It hinges off the front. So if you like to have that adjustment range front to back with height, you're not going to get it here. So it just took me a little while to get it to a comfortable position. Outside of that, they're reasonably supportive, and the firmness soft level is actually a nice balance for sitting in them for quite a while. And so I was able to get a comfortable space here along with the tilt and telescoping steering wheel. Another feature down here that I really think is cool is this has a rubber floor. If you take these floor mats out, you're going to find a what might be called a hose out interior, although it doesn't have drains. This has a nice versatile interior that allows you to get dirty in here, allows you to get in and out of this thing with wet, muddy boots if you have to. I love that. The rear seat passengers are going to find actually quite a comfortable space. Now, this is a compact SUV, there's no question about it. These seats are set for my height, about 5'9" with my boots on, and I've got about an inch of room from the back of these seats to my knees, as you can see. The great thing is I've got a good seating height back here. I'm not sitting down on the floor. My knees aren't perched up. It's a nice natural seating position, and the seat, just like the front seats, has a nice balance of firmness and softness, and not a lot of side support, but you feel like you're sitting in this seat nonetheless. One of the cool things back here is all of the little touches on this trim grade. Nice zipped pouches here, mat pockets in the back of these seats, and on the back of these seats are little straps that you can actually store things in if you're crafty enough. Vents on the back of the console, love that, especially on a hot day like right now. I've literally got the AC blowing on me right this minute. That's why you can hear the engine. Down below, you can also see that this has an AC outlet and 2 USB charging ports. Very cool. Also, as I would expect in this price range, a fold down armrest with cup holders in it. Now, let's talk about the cargo area. There's a lot going on here. First of all, optioned here is the cargo management system, which, as you can see, is this great folding shelf that is of a pretty good quality, and you can fold it and move things out of the way. You can remove it if you need to, and it can be used for some other things. But the way it's designed, it gives you a 2-tier package capability back there that I just think is totally cool. Now, when that comes out, you have a lot of versatility. First of all, you've got power ports back there, another AC port and a 12-volt port. Look at the big rubber liner there on the floor. That is cool, and that just allows you to just throw all your muddy gear, big muddy dog, all sorts of muddy things in here, not worry about carpet. When you put the seat down, there's a lot of cargo, and it's a nearly flat load floor, and they're pretty easy to lay down as well. So a lot of versatility going on here that's done quite well for the off-road outdoor enthusiast. And to back that up, underneath that floor is a full-size spare tire. It is a temporary spare, but it is a full-size tire that's the same size, at least in the diameter, of the rest of the tires. So if you're out there in the off-road world, you can still get out without having some little weird donut. When it comes to rating this interior, I love all of the sort of technical off-road versatility that they put in here. We really saw that in the back, and all of the bins and storage. They've really done a great job in the design sense. The materials are a little better than I might have expected from Ford. There's soft trims here and there, nice rubbery, soft, grippy material here on the dash, and it's a surprising quality. The stitching, the switchgear, all very good. The one area I would complain about is the comfort, but not a huge complaint. This interior gets 5 stars. It just squeaks into it, but it gets it. The infotainment system here, I have to admit, is a little bit of a letdown for this price point at $46,000. Most of the competitors are not only offering bigger screens, but more features, better audio and such. Here we only have an 8-inch screen. Competitors larger. Sync 3, not the best of what Ford offers. They offer Sync 4, which has a lot more feature content, a lot more capabilities. Here we do have satellite radio, Bluetooth connectivity, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. It also has B&O audio, which is Bang & Olufsen 10 speakers. The audio quality is pretty good, but it's still not as good as you might think it would be for being their top-end audio system. Using the menus on this, pretty easy, navigating around. And that is one benefit to having the Sync 3, which is kind of an older system. It's easy to figure out. Doesn't have a big learning curve, but it doesn't have things like a 360-degree camera for this price point. It's just a simple backup camera. It does have a forward-looking camera that you can use when you're in the off-road modes. That is helpful, but a 360-degree camera at $46,000 is almost expected here. This system gets 4 out of 5 stars. All right, my friends, let's take this thing for a test drive. Now, we're out here in the desert, my favorite place to test off-road vehicles. And we're not going to be doing some serious rock crawling, but we're going to see how well this thing feels when you are taking it beyond the pavement. So the Bronco Sport is a car-based crossover. So it's not the body-on-frame SUV that you're going to find in the full-size Bronco. The good news is that this is based on the Badlands trim grade, which has the advanced all-wheel drive system, the off-road suspension, and it also has a little bit of a lift over the standard ride height Bronco Sport. And so with the wheels and tires that this has, the skid plate that's underneath, this is a vehicle that you can more confidently bring out here and do a little bit more moderate trail riding than you would, say, with a standard Bronco Sport. Even though it looks like it's an Easter parade car, you can bring it out here and really work it. Now, before I go up this steep hill here, I will point out this has a button down here that you can force it to be in 4-wheel drive, unlike the lower grade Bronco Sports. Because of its all-wheel drive system, this can send almost 70% of the torque to the rear axle when the system is sending torque around electronically. You also have the GOAT modes here, which allow you to set a number of different things. You can see that on the instrument cluster. I'm actually just going to leave it in automatic mode because I think that works pretty well. And there's also a way to lock the rear differential. Now, this isn't a proper locker. In other words, it's not a locking differential per se. There's actually clutch packs in there that enabled it to electronically send the torque to either side. It can send up to 100% of the torque to one of the rear wheels that's going to the rear axle. So it's a pretty sophisticated system. So right now I've just got it in 4-wheel drive, and we're gonna go up this pretty steep little hill with moguls in it. And I do find that the system distributes the torque as needed, but we're not really in slippery situations. But I'm getting wheels off the ground and it arrests the wheel spin pretty quickly. With this extra bit of ground clearance that this has, it's got pretty good articulation for a car-based crossover, and the suspension seems to let this thing feel like it's somewhat flexible. Now, going down this hill, this does have hill descent control, so it will keep you at a prescribed speed going down a steep embankment. It'll control the brakes for you and the throttle. And so that's kind of a nice feature that I've come to appreciate on a lot of modern SUVs. And so letting off the brake and letting us get some more speed, I do find that this feels pretty solid for a car-based crossover. And as I mentioned, with this extra ride height, I feel a little bit more confident rolling down this trail a little faster. One of the nice things that this has is a pretty short wheelbase. Now, this has the same suspension and chassis essentially as the Ford Maverick Tremor all-wheel drive that we tested out here just about a month and a half ago. And by comparison, even though this drives very similarly, it has a much shorter wheelbase and therefore a lot more maneuverable in those tight corners and in tight spots. It feels more tossable. And that really is the rub. This is a vehicle that it looks very cute in its colors and all of its heritage garb, but this is a very capable vehicle out here in the wild. Next on the list to put the Bronco Sport through is the Desert Washboard Road, which is one of my favorite places to bring any SUV or truck, because even though it's really not hardcore off-roading, this rhythmic vibrating surface is a great way to see, well, how well bolted together this is, how well tuned the suspension is to isolate vibrations and things like that from the chassis and from the passenger compartment, most importantly. And believe me, I have driven some really expensive off-road vehicles out here and been pretty disappointed. And so what I'm finding out here is that just like on the trail, this feels very solid as a structure, and the suspension is tuned pretty well to isolate the cabin from a lot of this rougher surface out here. So the good news is that if you're planning on bringing your Bronco Sport out to the out here, be it a Badlands, be it this particular special edition, it's a pretty comfortable place to be when you're off the pavement. It's actually pretty quiet in here, given all that, and it seems to handle pretty good out here too. The stability control steps in pretty good when you throw it around a gravel corner, and so that's all good. It's all good. But the rub of the matter is that off-road capable though this is, most of the people that buy this are probably going to be spending 95% of their time on the pavement. So that's really where we ought to see how this thing behaves. On the pavement, I find that this is a vehicle that has pretty decent road manners. Now, the short wheelbase that this has makes it very maneuverable off-road, like we just found out, but on the pavement, at speed, on the freeway and highways, it tends to give it a choppier ride than what most vehicles in its class might have. And the suspension tuning is reasonably good around town. I do find that going over speed bumps, going over potholes, things like that, it can be a little bit sharp. But we are in an SUV, you expect that. Road noise, not too bad. I got 60.5 on our 70-mile-an-hour test, which is just a slight tick above average. I would attribute that to these all-terrain tires. And I do get a little bit of creaking in this structure when the body twists and going over speed humps, moguls, and things like that. And steering feel around town is actually pretty light at slow speeds. And when you're on the highway, I do find that this tends to wander a little bit. I found a lot of corrections needed to be done here and there as I was going down the highway. That could be an alignment issue, or it could be that just because of these all-terrain tires, this doesn't track quite as straight and true as it might otherwise. This chassis gets 4 out of 5 stars. Now it's time to talk about powertrain, and if you watch my videos, you know the question I always like to ask is, how does it go? We're going, and 60. Not too bad. This is a pretty heavy SUV, even though it is a compact. But what's under the hood here is Ford's well-tested 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine called EcoBoost. It has 250 horsepower and 277 pound-feet of torque. And here, 8-speed automatic transmission. And this does have the advanced all-wheel drive system, which does add a little bit of drag, and that brings down the fuel economy numbers too. And so this is rated at 21 city, 26 highway, and 23 mpg combined. So I find the power is actually more than adequate, and it doesn't seem like it's working too hard, although the air conditioner is on. It's hot outside. It has auto start stop, which normally would bring the engine to a stop at a stop sign, and when you lift off the throttle it would take off again. But because I'm running air conditioner and because it's 99 degrees outside today, even though it's the first week in April, the auto start stop is not doing that. So that's a nice thing. So driving around town, I find that this engine works pretty good. The transmission does a decent job of shifting, though it can be clunky at times. There's paddle shifters here that allow you to get some extra downshift on a little bit more of a manual way. And it does deliver power in a pretty immediate way too. and they mostly work. At the end of the day, I find that they're toys, that it's not linear. They will only shift the transmission if the transmission wants to be shifted, meaning if that the computer determines that everything is in the right time and place for you to actually have that shift. As I mentioned, down on the center console, you've got controls for the all-wheel drive system, and like what we talked about out there doing the off-roading, one of the benefits to this system is that you can tell it that you want it to be all-wheel drive. Most of the time, if you just don't have that turned on, this is front-wheel drive, and it will send power to the rear axle if you absolutely need it. But if you want manual control, this has it. So that is a benefit to going into the Badlands trim grade, as well as having this particular special edition. In my week with it, I got 21 miles to the gallon, which is a little bit below what's advertised, but in fairness, it does have, the air conditioner on. So I'm pretty happy with this powertrain overall. It gets 4 out of 5 stars. I have to tell you, I absolutely adore this color combination. Judge me if you want, I don't care. If you look at some of the other cars that I've owned in my past, and even the vehicle that I own right now, you'll start to see a pattern. I like white wheels, I like white accents, I like bright colors, pale colors, and this is just right up my alley in my style palette. I just love what they've done here, and I just find it ironic that Ford sent me this. They sent me this. And all I need to do is put a 5 on the door, and it looks just like the Beetle that I used to have, even right down to the wheels almost. So all of that out of the way, the question I have to talk about now is this worth the money? Even though I adore it. It's a lot for a compact SUV in this class, but part of what you're paying for is the fact that this is a special edition. It's got all of this cool stuff on it that if you like it, chances are, the value quotient that you're going to get from the Consumer Reports spreadsheet comparison probably isn't going to fit so much. But when you do look at that stuff, warranty here, not the longest in the business, 336 bumper to bumper, 5 years, 60,000 mile powertrain. Most of the other brands out there better that, honestly. And this is a vehicle that, it's a Ford. I recommend buying the extended warranty. So will your dealership. I bought one of mine. It's just, you should. The other thing I talk about is quality, and well, that's why you buy that warranty. But, yeah, there's rattles here and there. It's the average Ford build quality, which isn't best, isn't worst, but it's what it is. So when I look at all of that, I put value at 4 out of 5 stars. It gets a few points for being special. When you put that in with everything we've already talked about, it's 4 out of 5 stars for the total review. Not bad. Not bad at all for something so adorable and capable. So there you go. If you like what we do, see our latest video right there, or subscribe to our YouTube channel down there and stay informed of everything we do. Either way, stay tuned.